I'd like to call to order the July 18th, 2016 regular meeting of the Northfield Township Zoning Board of Appeals. Please join me with Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Kolecki, would you please call roll?
Okey-dokey. Mr. Del Farbo.
Here.
Okay. Steffens?
Present.
Chalkley?
Present.
Otto?
Here.
Kalecki here.
All right, thank you. You all received the agenda in your packets. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as proposed?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5, correspondence. Is anyone aware of any correspondence? I do not have anything. Vidya, have you? No? All right, no correspondence. Now, on the public hearings, do we call them one by one and then open up?
We should.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
All right.
I could move it. Okay. I move that we open the public hearing for case JZBA 160005, Greg Yarrington, seeking a variance from section 36-719, private roads and driveway regulations, subsection D3 of the Northfield Township zoning ordinance to construct a 15-foot wide driveway with a total length of 1,400 feet. When the ordinance permits a maximum length of 1,000 feet. The parcel number is B02-31-100-007 and is zone AR agriculture.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Is the petitioner present? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and then explain a little bit about your petition, please.
My primary residence and place of work in the field.
Your primary residence.
Yeah, I'm Gregory in Yarrington. And I live at 4843 Hiddenbrook Lane in Arbor, Michigan, 48105. And it's approximately about a mile and a quarter away from the property that we're discussing. So the situation is pretty simple. We've owned the land for almost 18 years. And we finally got to the point where kids are out of college and we can actually afford to build them. The challenge we have is that the water table is so high that we wanted to actually put the house in the middle of the property, but that's the ideal place where we got approval for the engineering drain field. So we ran out of options, and so we ended up deciding to put it in the back where we had the highest elevation, and we can build a walkout and have a pretty dry basement. So we are doing everything possible we can to kind of preserve the natural setting. We got 3 active ponds there. The middle pond closest to the house will have to be dredged, and so it's going to be approximately a half an acre, about 9 feet deep, where we're going to actually put in a dry fire hydrant for farming. Everything else is pretty much going to be the same. You know, we pretty much preserved. We cut down a lot of dead ash and dead elm, but we preserved the natural beauty of the area. We're looking forward to building and retiring there. The downside is we have a monstrosity on that one piece, so we're going to downsize.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't go anywhere. We might have questions here in a moment.
Okay.
Vidya, we'd like to hear from McKenna and Associates, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We have reviewed the variance application submitted by Mr. Yarrington to construct a new dwelling on a vacant parcel of land with access off Hellner Road. The site is located on the east side of Hellner, south of East Northfield Church Road, and is zoned AR, which is Agricultural District. This proposal requires one variance from the zoning ordinance, which is for the length of the driveway. The ordinance limits the maximum length of a private road or driveway to 1,000 feet. The proposal requests a driveway length of 1,400 feet. So the variance being requested is for 400 feet. The ordinance has specific standards that are based on state law, based upon which the board makes its determination on approval or denial of a variance. I shall summarize those. The first criteria being special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. Now, this site is a pretty large parcel. It's 16 plus acres, which exceeds the minimum lot requirement of 5 acres for the agriculture district. The site is characterized by many wetlands and small ponds, and in addition, per the applicant, the water table is also high, which results in a limited area available on the parcel for placement of a dwelling with a dry basement. The characteristic is not necessarily unique to the site and possibly occurs in other parcels within the township. Nevertheless, it is a limitation on the parcel and a challenge for construction and residential use of the land. The applicant is proposing to construct a new dwelling on the highest point on the parcel, which results in the need for a driveway that is longer than would otherwise be permitted by the ordinance. The second criteria is the special conditions and circumstances on which the variance request is based do not result from the action of the applicant. As I mentioned, the variance request is resultant from the topography and the geography of the property itself, that is the high water table and the wetlands, and that is not something that is within the control of the applicant. The third criteria is the literal interpretation of this chapter would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other property owners in the same district. Now, if the applicant were to adhere to the strict provisions of the ordinance, they would likely not be able to build a dwelling that has got a basement. Having a dwelling with a dry, usable basement is a right enjoyed by several property owners in the agriculture district and is not an unreasonable expectation. Next criteria, the granting of the variance requested will not confer upon the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this chapter to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. If the variance is granted, the applicant will be able to build a dwelling while addressing the natural challenges posed by the property. And as the applicant has stated, they are making every attempt to preserve the natural features on the site intact while still making use of it. The increased driveway length is to address a physical constraint on the property itself, and this is not conferring a special privilege on the applicant. The next criteria is the existence of non-conforming uses or neighboring land, structures, or buildings is not necessarily grounds for issuance of a variance for this project. The standard is really not applicable. We are dealing with a property that has got its own physical limitations and challenges, not in comparison to anything else. Next criteria is the variance requested is the minimum possible for reasonable use of land, building, and structure. As I mentioned, the building is located on the closest, highest portion of the land to Hellner Road. The driveway is about as short as it can get while still providing for the dry basement. So we believe the standard is met. And finally, the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the intent of the ordinance and will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to public interest. We believe granting the variance is not likely to have an adverse or injurious effect on the neighborhood or be detrimental to the public in general. Due to the increased driveway length, the fire department has required that the applicant put in a dry hydrant in order for fire protection, and the applicant has indicated and stated tonight that they will comply. Would you like me to go over my recommendations or reserve it till after the public hearing, Madam Chairman?
You might as well go over
Okay.
them now. That would be fine.
Okay. Based on our review of the proposal and the constraints posed by the property, it is our recommendation that the Zoning Board of Appeals approve the requested variance for the property located at 5450 Hellner Road, subject to the following findings of fact. First one, the site is challenged by the presence of wetlands, water bodies, and a high water table. The second finding would be the natural constraints on the property are not a result of any action by the applicant. Third finding is not allowing for a variance would likely result in a dwelling with no basement, which can be construed as not allowing for reasonable use of the property. Fourth finding is the request for variance is not resulting in any existing nonconformity on the subject or abutting sites. The fifth finding would be the variance requested is the minimum possible for placement of a dwelling with a dry basement. And finally, the variance is not adverse to public interest. And all 6 of the findings support the motion to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidya. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in support of the variance? Yes, ma'am. Please come to the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Bryn Rutar. I live at 5445 Helmet Road, directly across the street from the property in question. We are familiar with the property and believe that the siting of the house and the requested variance is entirely reasonable and it has the full support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is anyone here to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I will call for the close of the public hearing portion of this, and then we will come back to it in a minute where we will discuss and answer you any questions that we might have.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right. Is there you want to
Oh, yeah.
do a motion, Ms.
Okay.
Shockley?
Sure. I move that we open case JZBA 160006, Richard Bonello, 9681 Main Street, Whitmore Lake, Michigan, to construct a 30 by 40-foot pole barn intended for vehicle parking and storage on a parcel with ID number B0206105-018, zoned Whitmore Lake Downtown District. The proposal is under review per section 36902, nonconforming uses, subsection 6 of the Northfield Township zoning ordinance.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, is the applicant here for this variance? Hi, please state your name and address and then explain to us your variance filing.
My name is Richard Bonello. The address is 9681 North Main Street. My proposal is we would like to build a pole barn on the structure on the property because there is no place to park cars, put yard supplies like lawnmowers, gardening tools, and such like that. The property was built in 1930, and I'm undergoing cleaning up the property at this time. We've taken a lot of pride and time in cleaning the yard and the front, and trying to make the property look like something again that possibly could have been torn down. And I think it's about it.
All right, thank you. The members may have questions for you in a moment, so. All right, Vidya,
Yes.
would you please?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chairman. We have reviewed the ZBA application submitted by Mr. Bonello to construct a 1,200 square foot pole barn as an accessory to an existing single-family dwelling. The site is located on the southwest side of North Main Street and is zoned WLDD, which stands for Whitmore Lake District, downtown. The site has a single-family detached dwelling. Single-family dwellings and accessory structures are permitted in this district only on the upper floors. So the existing detached single-family dwelling is a legal non-conforming use and structure. Per the ordinance, in commercial and industrial districts, and provided no increase in the number of families resides therein, a non-conforming residential use may expand to occupy the floor area necessary for living purposes, and any customary accessory uses or structures may be established therewith as long as such expansion meets the yard and setback requirements of the zoning district in which it is located, subject to the ZBA's approval. So technically, what the applicant is proposing is not a variance. He is seeking an approval from this board to actually expand a non-conforming use, which is allowed by the ordinance under the specific section that I just quoted. The proposed pole barn is intended for vehicle parking and storage, which makes it accessory to the principal dwelling unit. So the applicant is requesting approval for the garage pole barn structure. The standards that are applicable to this request is not the same as for previous case, which was a variance. This is actually approval of a nonconformity. The ordinance has different standards for this. I shall summarize those in brief. The first criteria being the retention of the non-conforming building or structure is reasonably necessary for the proposed improvement, or that requiring the removal of such building or structure would cause unnecessary hardship. We believe the standard has been met. The nonconformity of the residential use results only because of its location on the lower story instead of upper story in the WLDD district as required by the ordinance. Removing the existing residence is not a reasonable requirement. Further, not allowing for an accessory structure for parking of vehicles or other storage needs of the occupant can also be construed as causing unnecessary hardship to them. The ordinance has no minimum lot size requirements. However, the subject site, with an area of about 17,600 square feet, far exceeds the minimum lot size requirement for similar single-family dwelling properties in the SR1 or SR2 district, if you were to compare it. Second criteria is the proposed improvement is reasonably necessary for the continuation of activities on the property. We believe this standard too has been met. It is not unreasonable to state that a garage or a storage area is necessary for a residential dwelling to meet their vehicle storage needs. Having such a structure will allow the applicant the ability to park their vehicles and store any equipment and other items inside a structure and out of the elements, which is standard for any single-family dwelling. The third and last criteria is that the enlarged or otherwise improved non-conforming building or structure will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. We believe this standard too has been met. The pole barn or garage is to be located in the rear yard of the property and is partially concealed from view of Main Street by the existing dwelling. There are no other existing structures in the immediate proximity to the proposed pole barn. We do not anticipate any adverse impacts to public health, safety, or welfare because of this structure. Based on our review of the proposal presented and the provisions allowed by the ordinance, we recommend that the ZBA approve the proposed construction of the pole barn or garage for the property located in 9681 North Main, subject to the following findings of fact. The existing dwelling is a legal non-conforming structure. Second finding would be not allowing for the garage storage area could be construed as causing unnecessary hardship. Third finding is the pole barn garage is clearly an accessory use to the principal dwelling. And finally, the proposed structure is not likely to have any adverse impact on public health, safety, or welfare. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Vidya.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
could I have a question for our planner, please?
Absolutely, yes.
Just a quick question. Is 8 foot enough? Is 8 foot enough for the side yard setback?
The WLDD district does not require any side yard setbacks. So they comply with all the other requirements of the ordinance. And just for our comparison, I compared it to any other single-family residential district lot size, and they far exceed the size requirements.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Is anyone in the audience here to speak in support or opposition to the variance? Seeing none, I will move to close the public hearing portion of case JZBA 16-0006.
I'll support that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Again, sit tight. We might have some questions for you here in a moment. All right, is there any old business before the board? No. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 8, which is, again, the new business, which is case JZBA 16-0005, the variance request at 5450 Hellner Road. Do the members of the board have any questions or comments for the petitioner or a planner?
If it's just a comment, Madam Chair, is it okay to call you Gregory? Yeah, you can. If you, it's just a comment. I looked at the property. That is really an interesting piece of property. I'm just really glad that you're investing in our township. It's going to be quite an investment, obviously, for what you're going to do, and I applaud you for what you plan on doing. So that's all I wanted to say. I just really appreciate what you're going to do, adding to our township.
Yes.
I just wondered how you're doing with getting that engineer to make sure that your water's not going to dry up in 50 years.
We're going to dig it deep,
Yeah.
and based on the other ponds and how they're doing, the ones that have been down at least 9 feet deep, they're all full of water,
Mhm.
and they've been full of water for 20 years or something.
Okay.
So we're going to dig it deep, and then, we'll come up with a maintenance program that works. Even the ponds that
Okay,
So,
okay.
so that's
Good.
the plan. And I thank you for acknowledging the fact if our driven lanes, it would be in the middle because getting power back there on the ground
Yeah.
is costing a small fortune.
Yes,
And so it's pretty expensive to build, but we're committed to doing that.
yeah, great. Yeah, I had a similar situation. I have a 1,500-foot driveway, and we had to put power back there. And we didn't do the dry hydrant route, but I think I would have liked to have done that. Anyway, so I just was concerned about it.
And that's mainly to preserve the natural. So we got a lot of herons back there,
Mhm.
at least 3 or 4, and probably 20, 25 ducks. So we worked hard not to disturb the natural habitat.
It's beautiful.
Have you had a wetland delineation survey done either on
Yeah.
your own? Okay, all right, so you
That's
have
one
all
of
that done.
the things, we actually have our application into DEQ, and the year that there should be a big deal because we're basically going to take, there's a board of about a quarter of an acre, and we're going to add about another 0.2 of an acre, making a 5-acre pond. So that front side of the second pond is actually going to be cleared out, and then the second half of that pond is going to be preserved. And so they've already, Adwell has been doing the engineering work for us, and they're working directly with them. And I had the pond guy that does all the digging for Duck Unlimited in the state of Michigan. He's already came in and he said this shouldn't be a big deal. It's a lot of dirt we got to move, but it should be a big deal. So, but it's going to cost a
Yeah.
But your children are out of college, so it's fine. Yeah.
We're trying to make it so we have horses, and so we'll have 2 or 3 horses there. There's certain years high enough that we're gonna have horses. We have a mule, so we're gonna be having small animals like that, and then we have chickens and ducks and all sorts of things on the property we have now. And so this will give us more room to let my wife do the things she likes to do.
Great.
Are there any other questions for the petitioner or our planner?
No?
No? All right. Well, then I would like to move that in the case of JZBA 160005, Gregory Yarrington, 5450 Hellner Road, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48105, is seeking a variance from Section 36-719, Private Roads and Driveway Regulations, subsection D3 of the Northfield Township zoning ordinance, to construct a 15-foot wide driveway with a total length of 1,400 feet when the ordinance permits a maximum length of 1,000 feet. Parcel numbers B0231-100-007 and is zoned AR agricultural. I move that the Zoning Board of Appeals approve this variance request because it meets the findings of fact as listed in the ordinance and included in tonight's discussion and in the staff report dated June 23rd, 2016.
I'll support that.
Could we also amend it to include the dry hydrant as required?
I believe I listed it on page 2 under item 4 that the fire department is requiring the dry hydrant.
Yeah.
It was also part of their zoning compliance, they have to put it in.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, I think if I recall, we have to actually put in the road, in the pond before we get the road. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
ouch.
Number 4.
Would you like to still list it as a condition?
I would like to
Okay.
list it as a condition.
All right. And we will amend the motion to include the condition that approval is subject to a dry hydrant being placed on the site per the fire department specifications.
Okay. I'll resecond that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Chalkley.
Exactly.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 8B, case JZBA 0006, variance request or non-conforming request at 9681 Main Street. Do any of the board members have any questions for the petitioner or the planner?
Do we have a copy of what the pole barn would look like?
Yes, I believe it's,
I didn't see a copy in our packet.
No.
Yeah, I didn't have one either.
It appears that it would be far back enough from Main
Yes.
Street that you
Yes.
could hardly even tell that it was there.
I apologize, Ms. Soto. There was only one original copy of the pole barn, and I returned it to Mary.
Oh, okay.
So she has it for the original files. But yes, the pole barn will be well back. It's 46 feet behind the dwelling, and it's placed in a way that the house is almost going to block most of it from you. You're going to only see a small portion of it. So,
'Cause I know that there's trees there on the side and everything, so.
What is the height of the pole barn?
Just a regular, the walls are 10 feet high inside, and then just the peak on top. It's not higher than the house, it'll be lower than the house.
Do you know what the pitch is?
At this time,
It would have to be the
do not,
regulation.
know which is, I don't have any type of drawing of the structure to look at. It's just gonna be a regular type of garage, basically, is what it's gonna be. But it's called pole barn because it's cheaper to build. And it's just the upside down vinyl siding.
Oh,
White garage doors, I mean, it's gonna look more like
a garage.
garage.
Like residential garage.
Okay.
And, yeah, no shop up above.
No. One story, no, what do you call it, apartments on
Right.
top or anything like that. No hayloft.
Okay.
Member Shockley?
Right. So it's going to be vinyl siding. I have a pole barn that's 30 by 40, and it has the metal, it's metal, so, but yours is going to be,
Just like a regular garage, wood studs,
Mhm.
then they put the wood on the outside and then they put vinyl on the outside. Cement floor, just like a regular garage. Like I said, the owner, the guy told me that if you call it a pole barn, it's about $3,000 cheap. So
Mhm.
I saved $3,000 if I call it a pole barn.
okay. Okay. And what color is it going to be?
It's gonna be, the brick on the house is different shades of gray.
Mhm. Stone.
The whole stone house.
Mhm.
And the different shades of grayish color. It's gonna be a gray, medium gray
Mhm.
color with, white trim.
That should
Okay,
look good.
it'll be brilliant. Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
nice house.
Yes, you're doing some nice stuff out there. It's got,
Oh, thank you.
I saw the plants and,
You seen all of our plans?
yeah, in progress, and it,
Yes, it is in
Yes.
progress. We worked hard cleaning up everything.
mhm.
Quickly, we've done quite a bit since we bought the house. What do you call it, it's still got a lot of work to do in the backyard. A lot of cleaning up. It'll look nice when it's done.
Okay. Oh, and I have one more question. I did see a little sort of pad of concrete back there where the pole barn's going to be. Is that just like a sidewalk or I don't know what that is.
It's a remnant of a walkway. They'll remove that.
Okay.
We have to leave some.
I just wondered if it was the top of a septic, tank or something. That's fine. Thank you.
It's just, there's a lot of cement pads in the back,
Mhm.
especially towards the back fence in the backyard. There's a lot of cement pads. Looked like they had little sheds and, animals at one time back there. And that's what it looks like to me.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Bonello, is that going to be your primary residence when you
Yes,
get?
it is.
Okay. And that's just another comment too. From what's been going on there the last few years, it's just nice to see that, what you're doing there, to clean it up and make it nice. It hasn't been too nice the last few years, and I'll just tell you, it's nice to see what you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, we try to take pride in what we do. We're excited about it. We've always run an older house like this. And we're doing a lot of work on the inside of the house. And any exterior problems that can only go so fast. So, I think we're making progress. I think we're making progress. I give my wife credit for the backyard, except for the tree cutting. But she's cleaned up all the vines and all the overgrown stuff on the side of the house, and planted her forever gardens all over the house and in front. And she said, next year, wait till next year, you'll really see flowers blooming.
We're excited. It's a charming house.
It's very unique.
We're excited to bring her back to her glories.
Great. I have a question for Vidya.
Yes.
I'm having a trouble with these findings because they don't seem to match the request. It's particularly number one, that the retention of the non-conforming building or structure is reasonably necessary for the proposed improvement, or that requiring the removal of such building or structure would cause unnecessary hardship. The ordinance allows in 36-902, residential use may expand to occupy the floor area necessary for living, and any customary accessory uses or structures may be established therewith. So, but that first finding is talking about retaining a non-conforming building or removing a structure, not increasing the non-conformity.
The findings of fact are not, finding of fact number one doesn't necessarily correspond to discussion number one. Findings of fact can be in random order also. Are you concerned that the first finding of fact is not matching up to the item listed, or?
I'm concerned that the request does not match. I don't see any harmony between the ordinance, what the ordinance allows, and then what the findings are that we have to make. Because the ordinance allows them to construct an accessory use. But the findings in 36-905A4 say that the retention of the non-conforming building or structure is reasonably necessary,
You're
or
concerned about the
removing.
standards that are listed
Yes,
in
the
the ordinance.
standards that are,
Okay, I
because
got confused.
they don't match what the ordinance allows them to do. So how can we meet that first standard? Because the first standard is retention of the building or removal, and they're not proposing either one of those things.
If you, yes, I see the point that you're making. The way the standards are phrased doesn't necessarily comport with giving the ZBA the opportunity to allow for such an expansion. But I think the intent, sometimes when ordinance language is written like this, sometimes the intent behind it also matters. I think the intent was also not just removal of the non-conforming structure, all the other uses that would pertain with it too. Now, the garage that they're proposing is not a use by itself. It is, by its very nature, accessory to the house, which is a non-conforming structure. So by understanding it is not allowing the structure, the garage to go in, are you causing unnecessary hardship? Which it could be argued that yes, having a single family dwelling and not having a garage for your storage needs can be construed as being as an unnecessary hardship. It is an interpretation because unlike the other standards in the ordinance, it is not perfectly written the way it is, but I don't know at what point of time these standards were put in there for the nonconformities, but that's.
Because trying to get these two to harmonize makes me feel like we're wading into use variance territory. Because the garage is larger than the house. The footprint of the garage is larger than the footprint of the home. So it is not the definition of an accessory structure is that it is incidental and subordinate to the primary use. So I'm just trying to get all of this lined up in my mind, because this is a tricky, I think these findings are tricky when you go back to see what the ordinance actually allows you to do for a non-conforming
This
use.
is most definitely not a use variance. A use variance is something completely different. A use variance basically means you're requesting the right to put a use in a district because you're saying the property can no longer be used for anything viable that is allowed in the district. Now, this district does allow residential dwellings. It just allows them on the
second
upper
floor.
story. So it's not that the use is banned by the district. It's just the way the ordinance is phrased. It is more phrased towards commercial uses, while residential uses are also accepted. Use variance is a whole different category. You're saying that you can get no reasonable use out of the property unless you put that one use in there, and we are not there in this. So I think, yes, I agree with you that the way the standards are listed is a little challenging, but in this case, I think the distinction is pretty clear. It's an existing legal non-conforming use. The garage is clearly accessory to the principal building. Our ordinance does not restrict the size of the garage versus the size of the dwelling. In some smaller communities, it does say that the garage can be no more than 50% of the size of the principal dwelling. We don't have that over here. So the size of the pole
No.
barn doesn't come into question over
But
here.
it is in our definitions that it has to be subordinate to and accessory
Yes.
to. And so that's why I was curious to know what the height of the building was.
It would
'Cause I'm-
still have to, they would still have to pull a building permit
Yeah.
and get it approved by the building official for the height and all the other requirements in the ordinance. The structure will still meet all ordinance requirements. They're just before you asking for a right to actually put the structure in, which otherwise would have been granted to any other property.
Tricky language in this ordinance. It
Yes.
doesn't,
I'm
I
sure
mulled it
Marlene
over.
will agree.
Yeah,
Well, maybe we ought to fix something if
I-
it's that tricky. Yeah, yes.
I think so.
I have
Yes.
come across a couple of more definitions, which I shall let the board know later, which when I read it first, I was like, am I even reading this properly?
Mhm.
So there are some unusual
Yeah, this is, I think this is problematic. When you look at what's permitted and then what we have to, the findings that we have to meet. And we don't have, that's the other thing we ought to have, is the findings from the applicant are the findings for variance. They didn't have, maybe we need a different form.
Bec- We probably do if it's a non-conforming, because they don't come under the same standards
yeah,
that
they don't have
Mr.
the same
Yarrington's
standards,
property.
so-
They don't come under, so it's not like they are justifying a deviation from the ordinance. This is an extra power that's been granted to the ZBA, that you will be allowed to make a determination so that you don't have rampant expansion. Here it's a reasonable request, so the ZBA gets to ratify it.
All right, any other questions, comments?
I'd like to make the motion, but I'm not sure how to do it.
Just read the
You can just read this out and say you're making a recommendation to approve the request based on the findings of fact.
It's a request for what?
A request for construction of a new pole barn garage at this address.
So it's not a variance, it's just, okay.
Yes, you're approving a request to construct a pole barn garage.
Madam Chair, case number JZBA 160006, Richard Bonello, 9681 Main Street, Weber Lake, 48189. I move that we approve to construct a 30 by 40 pole barn intended for vehicle parking and storage on parcel ID B0206-105-018, Zone WLD, Whitmer Lake Downtown District. I guess that's all I need to say.
Yes, and the motion to approve is supported by the findings of fact listed in the consultant letter dated June 16th.
The motion is supported by the findings of fact
Listed in the letter.
in the letter from McKenna Associates.
Thank you.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Call to the public. Nobody has anything to say. Okay. ZBA member comments. Do any of the board members have anything they wish to discuss?
Nope.
I just want to say thanks, Jim Nelson and Lisa, for your hard work.
Thank you.
Appreciate both you guys.
We will, yes. Oh, we skipped right over that. I do have one comment first, or a question, actually.
Oh,
Where is the planning commission on, I saw that the planning commission had reviewed a set of findings of fact that McKenna had, where are we on that? And I'm hoping that the ZBA will have a chance to review them before the PC votes
That's a
on
good
them.
idea.
In regards to what?
We were redoing the findings of fact for variance requests.
Okay.
It came before the planning commission, and I believe we were okay with them. They would need to be published, we would need a public hearing on them.
Well, I would.
And you would like to
I
see
would
them?
request that the ZBA members
Sure.
have a chance to, because what I saw, I had a couple of,
Okay.
concerns about what you'd already seen. So I would like
Okay.
for the ZBA to get together and review those before you vote on them.
Okay.
Please.
Did you write those, Vidya? Or-
I actually worked with my colleague Patrick Sloan on it, but Patrick is handling all the planning commission related work. I will
Right.
make sure to get the draft of the ordinance to all of the members tomorrow.
Okay.
itself.
Thank you, I
Okay.
appreciate it. Yeah,
That's a
thank
good
you.
idea.
Okay,
Thank you for
thank you.
bringing that up.
All right, let's go back to approving the minutes from May 16th, 2016.
Make the motion to approve the minutes of May 16th of the ZBA of Appeals minutes of the regular meeting on May 16th.
support?
All in favor?
Aye.
Announcement of next meeting, it will be August 15th, 2016. If there is something on the docket for that evening, I trust that Mary will let us know. If there is not. There being no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.